He told me to calm down, it's just a dog. He wasn't the one carrying a bleeding child to the ER. That sentence has lived under my tongue for months like a shard of glass I can't spit out. People who tell you a dog is just excited, just protective, or just playing never seem to be the ones prying jaws off a child's arm. They're the ones standing on the porch with crossed arms and a wounded ego, certain that your fear is an overreaction and their negligence is a personality quirk. I used to be polite about it. I used to use words like concerned and please. By the end, I wasn't gentle. I was a metronome of warnings and a hammer of documentation, and still, somehow, I was the villain in their story until the blood proved me right. We moved into this house because the street felt like a promise, big sycamores, a bend that slowed traffic, chalk hopscotch outlines ghosted onto the pavement. On our second day, I met him near Trevor, with a handshake that lingered too long and eyes that catalogued my lawn like a quality control inspector. He was holding a thick, muscular dog by the collar, not a leash, saying the name like an apology. "Diesel," he said. Diesel pulled forward, nails skittering on concrete, and Trevor didn't seem concerned. "He's friendly," he added, as if reciting a legal disclaimer warded off risk. The dog's eyes were the amber of whiskey and fixed on my toddler, Nora, with a stillness that felt like calculation more than curiosity. I held Nora's hand tighter and smiled. People mistake women's smiles for agreement. Mine was armor. The first incident didn't break skin. It broke trust. Diesel slipped their front door one Saturday, an open-door party, laughter, the revolving door of guests who assumed a dog was part of the vibe, and bolted at a child's scooter, a bright red flash. He collided with Nora's legs and sent her skidding on her palms. She cried, wild and shocked, and he hovered, tail high, hackles raised, head low in that predatory arc that says play until it doesn't. I scooped my daughter up and put my body between them. Trevor came jogging out barefoot, beer in hand, and laughed like I'd staged a comedy bit. "He's just saying hi," he said, as if the word hi included teeth. "Put him on a leash," I snapped, louder than I intended, and the party air chilled around us. He dragged Diesel inside by the collar, muttering about people who don't understand dogs. That was day one of the battle, leash versus unleashed, muzzle versus ego. I started texting every time I saw Diesel loose, "Please leash your dog." I tried conversational warnings. I printed the city ordinance and highlighted the sections about restraint, public safety, fines, and dangerous dog designations. The next weekend, Diesel was back in the yard, off-leash, patrolling the fence line like a sentry. He'd freeze when Nora's ball hit our grass, tracking it with that still, cold attention. When we walked to the car, his body would stiffen. When we reached the driveway, he'd rush the chain link and slam it with his chest. The sound turned the inside of my ribs into a drum. Trevor's girlfriend, Kayla, was glass smooth and volatile in that way that remains charming until it's not. She said things like he needs to roam, it's cruel to muzzle him and leashes ruin his confidence. She was fond of the word energy. Diesel, she said, could feel my fear and it made him reactive. As if my obligation was to rehearse being prey until the predator got bored. The logic was a circle they lived inside, and any attempt to step across it made me negative, uptight, hostile. I started filming. Diesel at the fence, Diesel crossing their lawn toward the sidewalk, Diesel slipping the door as a guest came in, Diesel nose to nose with Nora's stroller while Kayla laughed. I held my phone like a crucifix. I emailed animal control with dates, times, attachments. The first response was a form letter, the second included a case number. The third said an officer would swing by and educate. Education was a neighborly chat at their curb. I watched from the window as a polite man in a city polo explained the leash law. Trevor nodded, arms folded. Kayla smiled too much. Diesel barked from inside, a deep, rhythmic sound that made the glass vibrate. The officer left, their door closed. Within 24 hours Diesel was back on the front lawn, collar on, no leash, claiming the sun as his personal boundary. That week I installed taller latches on our gate and taught Nora how to make herself big and stand behind me. Teaching a 4-year-old to learn a choreography of fear did something permanent to me. I stopped sleeping well. My heart started sprinting when tires hit gravel outside. When laughter came from next door, I rehearsed the worst at the speed of panic. The second incident drew blood, shallow but red enough to stain memory. I opened our front door with Nora at my hip and a bag of library books in my hand, and Diesel lunged into our entryway like a shadow with a mouth. He'd been lying in their yard and saw, in the 2 seconds the door was open, an opportunity. I caught him by the collar on instinct. The heat of him, the power of an animal that has never known a hand it couldn't drag, shocked me. He twisted, jaws snapping, and his teeth grazed my forearm, just a line, hot and sudden, bright with blood as he yanked free. Nora screamed. I slammed the door and pressed my body against it, breath gone, world narrowed. He scratched the wood with frantic scrapes, vocalizing in that clipped staccato that says arousal tipping toward aggression. Trevor sauntered over like a lifeguard at the end of the shift and tapped our door. "You okay?" "He's just keyed up," he said, as if keyed up were a weather report and not a warning. I held my arm under the faucet and watched diluted pink circle the drain. I called animal control again. This time, the officer's tone was less neighborly. He issued a citation, failure to restrain, aggressive incident, education completed. He talked about escalating penalties and dangerous dog hearings. He used phrases like pattern of behavior. Trevor's jaw tightened, Kayla's smile cooled. After the officer left, Trevor knocked again. "You could have handled this between us," he said, voice pitched lower, that intimate man-to-man tone used to reassert dominance. "I'm done handling it," I told him. "Leash. Muzzle when he's outside the fence. Or keep him inside." He laughed in my face. "You're scared of a dog. That's a you problem." So I made it a them problem. I attended the HOA meeting and brought a folder of printouts, ordinances, dates, photos, a spreadsheet of contacts and case numbers. I didn't disguise my urgency. I spoke without softening. A couple on Cedar Lane nodded, another neighbor rolled his eyes and said words like Karen under his breath. I did not care. The HOA issued a letter. Animal control flagged the address. I bought Nora a bright orange whistle and drilled her in blowing it. At night, I sat on the couch and listened to Diesel bark, 3 hours, then 4, then silence that meant nothing. Sleep was a gift I no longer trusted. Trevor retaliated by performing compliance. He bought a leash, thin, decorative, a suggestion, and dragged Diesel around the block once a day with his phone up, filming himself as evidence. He posted a story captioned "Some people hate dogs," and Kayla added a sad face emoji. Their friends commented with solidarity and conspiracy theories about neurotic moms. The next afternoon, Diesel was back unrestrained, patrolling his kingdom. Kayla started waving at me with all her fingers like a kindergarten teacher. "Hi, neighbor," she'd call, sweet as artificial strawberries. My teeth ached from grinding. The day it happened shouldn't have been special. It was an ordinary sash of time at the end of a workweek, slanted sunlight, dinner prep, the hollow noise of cartoons in the background. Nora wanted to ride her little balance bike on the sidewalk for 3 minutes. "Mommy, I promise." I did the calculus I always do, risk against routine, neighbor patterns against fatigue. I leashed our old lab, Scout, because Scout is gentle and large enough to look like a deterrent. We did a short loop, to the mailbox, to the hydrangeas, to the chalk line someone's kid left like a boundary of a game. Diesel wasn't in sight. The curtains next door were closed. For the first time in days, my shoulders lowered an inch. We were halfway past their driveway when Diesel exploded from behind a parked truck like a spring-loaded trap. He wasn't barking. He was silent, moving with that single, terrible focus of a predator that has made a decision. There was no time to be eloquent. I yelled Nora, behind me, and dragged Scout's leash tight as a barrier. Scout bristled and stepped forward, bless him, but Diesel fainted left and went low under Scout's chest like a missile aimed at small flesh. I remember the sound first, a wet, ripping pop of teeth meeting skin, the high electric scream that comes out of a child when the world betrays them, the animal snarl of Diesel's throat. I remember seeing Nora's tiny forearm vanish into his mouth up to the crook of her elbow. I remember my body moving without me, hands in a dog's mouth, fingers on gums, pressing at hinge points, thumb in the eye socket, any tactic I'd ever half-read in an emergency thread. Kayla was in the yard suddenly, shrieking Diesel. Diesel, like a cheer, not a command. Trevor ran in slow motion, each step a choice he'd failed to make a year ago. I punched the dog hard in the ribs, and he adjusted his grip with the mechanical efficiency of an animal that has gripped 1,000 tug toys. Blood transformed everything, hot and slick, made the grass smell like iron, made my thoughts short and brutal. I dug my knuckles into the lower jawline and wrenched. He let go because physics demanded it, not because obedience did. I pulled Nora into my chest, Scout circling us like a planet. "Calm down, it's just a dog," Trevor said, because men like him have a sentence they carry for every emergency, and this one was his. He reached for Diesel's collar like the world was solvable by grasping. He wasn't the one carrying a bleeding child to the ER, my mind said inside a ringing silence as I wrapped Nora's arm in my shirt and felt hot stickiness seep into my skin. The wound looked wrong, too wide, too tooth-drilled. Nora's face went the color of dishwater. "We're going," I told the world and ran. At the ER, time dissolved into fluorescent stabs and questions that had to be repeated because my brain fell through holes. "Is the animal vaccinated?" "Yes," I said, then he's supposed to be. "Do you want to call the police?" "Yes," I said, immediately, clean as a bell. "Has this happened before?" "Not like this," I said, but the file in my head opened and pages flipped. Nora clung to me and made little hiccuping sounds between sobs. The nurse's eyes were the kind that have seen all varieties of human catastrophe. She looked at me like I had already done the hard part by getting my child in the door as a solution instead of a story. A doctor irrigated the punctures and talked in a voice meant to make sense of mangled flesh, prophylactic antibiotics, tetanus up to date, rabies protocol unlikely but will verify, consult plastics for layered closure, outpatient hand therapy because tiny hands are symphonies you must tune carefully after trauma. The police met us there. I handed them my folder, times, dates, case numbers, citations, printed ordnance, HOA letter, screenshots of Diesel off leash, videos of fence slams, texts unanswered and answered badly. I did not apologize for being prepared. The officer's pen moved steadily. He asked if I wanted to press charges. "Yes," I said. The word came out even and low, like a weight set down on a table. He nodded like the decision had already been made months ago by another version of me who was done being told to calm down. Animal Control initiated a dangerous dog investigation that night. The ER faxed the bite report, the officer took photos, the hospital banded Nora's wrist, plastic surgery stitched her, fine and careful, like embroidery to make a life look unbroken. Back home at 2 a.m. I stood in the shower and scrubbed my skin until the water turned from pink to clear and my hands shook like a power line in wind. My husband, who had been racing home through traffic like a penance, sat on the floor outside the bathroom door with his head in his hands. He kept saying he was sorry, like the words could rewind the calendar, like apologies were bullets that could be fired back in time to pierce negligence. The next morning, Trevor's tone changed the way a sky changes when a storm discovers it's wrong. He texted platitudes, "So sorry, he's never done that before, a lie, what can we do?" I did not answer. I forwarded everything to the case officer. The HOA president called and said, with bureaucratic relief, that now there's something we can act on. A mother shouldn't have to pay in stitches for a committee to find its spine, but here we are. Kayla posted nothing for a whole day, then she posted a prayer hands emoji over a picture of Diesel curled up like a villain could be redeemed by posture. There was a hearing, City Hall, folding chairs, the solemnity of people who don't know what to do with their hands. I testified. I used the voice I use when I'm reading bedtime stories and need the monster to sound real. Animal Control presented the record, citations, prior complaints, the ER doctor's note, photos of Nora's arm before the sutures. Trevor said he's like our child and he's a rescue with trauma and she has a vendetta. Kayla cried thick mascara tears. Diesel did not attend, his absence felt like a statement. The board deliberated. The words dangerous dog designation entered the room with a weight you could feel in your molars. The conditions were clear, a secure enclosure, a 6-foot leash and well-fitted basket muzzle any time outside the enclosure, signage, increased homeowners insurance, compliance checks, immediate seizure if any violation occurred, hefty fines, and if there was any further aggression, euthanasia on table as mandated by statute. This time, the law had teeth. For the first time since moving in, I exhaled without tasting metal. Compliance didn't arrive as responsibility. It arrived as resentment. Trevor built the enclosure because he had to, not because he believed in it. He bought a basket muzzle and cinched it too loose the first week like a toddler wearing a hat. Animal Control tightened it on the spot and wrote a warning. I filmed, again, always. Diesel learned the routine. He went still when the muzzle came, resigned, eyes sliding toward the door like he was memorizing. I avoided their fence line. I changed our walking route. The street that once felt like a promise became a map of places we did not go. Nora healed the way children do, quickly, messily, with bravery that looks like forgetfulness. For weeks she told the story wrong, the doggy gave me a bite like a kiss, because her brain needed distance from the terror, and I let the error stand until the stitches were out and the nightmares quieted. Then we told the truth together in small portions. We practiced what to do around dogs she didn't know. We talked about good owners and bad choices, about rules that make everyone safe. We played with Scout on the living room rug and invented a ritual, 3 deep breaths, 1 long hug. I learned to breathe again. The civil part was a separate battlefield. Medical bills are not metaphors, they arrive in white envelopes that don't care about your healing. We filed a claim with their insurance. We filed a police report for the court copy. We retained an attorney because sometimes the only language negligent people understand is an invoice. The settlement didn't make us whole, it made them feel something that wasn't arrogance. Money doesn't apologize. It acknowledges. I took it and bought a new deadbolt and a summer camp for Nora that specialized in confidence after fear. She learned to climb the rope ladder and shout at the top. I stood on the grass and cried in public and didn't care. On the first day Diesel appeared in a muzzle behind the new enclosure's fencing, Trevor gave me a look that said he believed himself the victim of a neighbor's crusade. I gave him nothing back. He couldn't understand that the leash wasn't an insult, the muzzle wasn't humiliation. They were the bare minimum a community requires when one person's choices make another person's child bleed. Over time, the stares lessened, the posts stopped, their yard was quieter. Sometimes I would hear Diesel huff and turn away, thwarted, and I would feel not triumph but relief, the kind that makes your knees weak at the sink. People ask me if I hate dogs now. I don't. I hate negligence dressed as love. I hate owners who outsource their responsibility to the rest of us and call our fear hysteria. I hate that I had to become a clerk of trauma, dates, times, videos, to make officials believe what a mother's body already knew. But I love Scout's old man sigh and the warm weight of his head on my foot while I cook. I love that Nora still draws dogs with big goofy smiles and stick legs. I love that she will grow up understanding that boundaries keep everyone alive. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I walk past the enclosure alone. Diesel lifts his head, muzzle on, eyes alert. He watches me, and I watch him, and in that observation is the entire history between us, every warning ignored, every laugh that dismissed a law, every second that lengthened into a catastrophe, every stitch, every hearing, every form I filled out with shaking hands. I don't gloat. I don't greet him. I keep walking. The gate is latched. The leash hangs from a hook like a lesson. The muzzle fits snug as truth. If you want the moral, it's boring and hard. Leash your dog, muzzle when required, fix your fence, obey the law, listen when a neighbor says they're scared, and do it before the blood teaches you what empathy couldn't. I gave Trevor 100 chances to be decent. He spent them all on pride. Pride is loud until paperwork arrives. Pride is brave until a gurney rolls past. Pride is certain until a board reads out conditions in a windowless room and a mother lifts her child's bandaged arm as evidence. He told me to calm down, it's just a dog. Every time I fold laundry and see the shirt I used to wrap Nora's arm, that sentence returns with the metallic taste of fear. It's not just a dog when your child is screaming. It's not just a dog when your hallway smells like iron. It's not just a dog when a surgeon's needle is making tidy loops in small skin. It's an animal with a jaw designed by nature to kill and an owner designed by arrogance to deny. I will never calm down about that. I will never be polite at the price of my child's blood again. We still live on this street. The sycamores still throw their patient shade. The chalk lines still reappear when the rain stops. Nora's scar will silver and soften, and she will hold her arm out to friends and say, "See," with pride instead of pain. I will keep the folder in the kitchen drawer, a relic and a talisman, and I will keep the habit of looking both ways not just for cars but for consequences. And if anyone ever asks me whether a leash and a muzzle are cruel, I will point to the scar and say, as evenly as a metronome, cruel is pretending your choices don't touch the rest of us.